Today's stuff we're going to be learning is Ketubot, Daf Tzaditet. Today's stuff is sponsored by Alana Kurmeyer in loving memory of her father, Moshe Fox, Moshe Yehuda ben Harab Binyamin, and Chayat Tzipora on his 5th year at site, which was yesterday. I sorely miss his humor and warmth and the special relationship he had with his grandchildren. But we're going to get started right now with a review. Okay, I'm going to pull up the sheet for today. There's a study guide, which I highly recommend using. If you're not watching the video, you can follow along with it. And we're going to follow the whole class using the study guide. So the Mishna on Ketubot Tzadichet had given 3 cases. Okay, I kind of got rid of some of the other opinions in the Mishnah, but we're dealing with the 3 basic cases. We have the first case is, and actually based on a question somebody asked me yesterday, I want to explain something even more basic, which is what's going on, and this is really what's at the basis for our whole daf. We have a woman who's owed money for her ketubah. She's a widow. Now, with the question I was asked was, how does she have access to all these lands? They're not, right? Remember, the woman doesn't really own land. Yes, she could own some land, but this land certainly she doesn't own. How is she accessing this land? So she has access to the land of the heirs to the amount that she is deserving of for her ketubah, because she is no different, although maybe a little different, that's part of the question, but she's really acting like any Baal Chov, any creditor. If I'm owed money and they don't pay me back, I can go in, just like I can seize land they sold. I can seize land from their property and I can sell it and take it on behalf of my loan. So I have the rights and I basically go in as their messenger. It's really what's happening here. I'm acting, if I'm the widow, I'm acting on behalf of the orphans who didn't sell the property to give me the money. I'm going to go and I'm going to sell it and say, oh, look, this is the amount of money I got. Now I have the money for my ketubah. Okay. And we have 3 different cases in the Mishnah. And the question is going to be, as we go along, right, we're going to have to assume each case is adding something new that we wouldn't have known before. So case number 1. Okay, we're going to see, right? In one, she had a ketubah of 200, and one, she had a ketubah of 100, and one, she had a ketubah of 400. That's not really what's so important. So those are the basis of the cases. If her ketubah was 200, we have 2 possibilities within case number 1. She either sold one piece of land that was only worth 100, but she got a great price for it. She sold it for double the amount. In the end, she has 200 of zuzin in hand. So that's the end. Or she sold 200, a plot of land for 200, and she only sold it though for 100. She got a terrible price. But since the land was worth 200, it's as if she got a 200 ketubah. Basically, the loss is on her, right? She doesn't gain if she sold it for more, and she loses if she sells it for less. It's her problem. Second case, she has a ketubah of 100, and then she sells a plot of land that's 100 plus a dinar for 100. Okay, now we had 2 ways of understanding this Mishnah. We'll go back to that in a minute, but let's just explain it the simple reading and the way we're going to conclude, which is that she sold 1 and a dinar, even though she really was only deserving of 1, and she 100, so 101 plot of land for 100. And then we say the wholesale is off, even if she tells the heiress, I'll give you an extra dinar to pay you back for the loss, it's no good. We'll talk today about why it's no good. Third case, 400 zuz ketubah, and then she goes and starts selling the plots piecemeal. She sells a plot for 100, another plot for 100, another plot for 100, and the last plot, she sells 101 for 100. So the first 3 sales are valid. The last one is invalid because, again, she sold too much, right? The loss was on the orphans, and that doesn't work. That's an invalid sale. So now we're going to review again the Gemara on this. So the Gemara we had asked on Daf Tzadichet and Bet was, if you ask a messenger, it's just basic laws of messengers. I ask a messenger to sell my plot of land, which is a letech. Okay, it's a half a core. And the shaliach doesn't exactly do what I say and sells the whole core. Okay, takes a much bigger piece of land and sells it. So do we say the shaliach did more than what I asked for? Mosif. And at least, now, obviously, the half that I didn't want him to sell is not sold. I can say to the person who bought it, give me back my land. But what about the first half? Do we view it as kind of 2 halves, and half I asked about and the other half I didn't? Or do we say, no, he didn't do what I asked. I asked for a letech. He sold, right, to sell a letech. He sold the core. The shaliach didn't do what I asked at all, and the whole sale is invalid. So they tried to answer from our Mishnah by understanding our Mishnah in a different way. The second case in our Mishnah. Tashma. Now, at this point, they explained the Mishnah differently. This was the end of yesterday's stuff. Was it not that they sold a shaveh maneh v'dinar b'maneh v'dinar? First, they think what meant was she took 1 in a dinar and sold it for 1 in a dinar. What does it mean b'maneh? It sounded like sold it for 100. No, she sold it for 101. But what was the problem? Right? Even, and that's the afilu, right? B'maneh means for her ketubah, for her 100 of the ketubah. And what's afilu? Even if she says, I'll give back a plot of land of dinar to the yorshim. Okay? In other words, I sold this 101 piece of land. I'll give you back a dinar's worth of land to the orphans. Still, michra batel. What does it sound like? So it sounds exactly like the case of the letech in the core. Now, I want you to pay attention. The letech in the core had nothing to do with that I got a different price. I got double the price, right? I wanted you to sell my letech. You sold it for $100,000. But you sold the core also, which means double the amount. You sold it for $200,000. There was no loss. In which case, that would be the exact same thing as our Mishnah, which is she sold 101 for 101. Now, they didn't ask her to sell 101. They only asked her to sell 100. She sold extra. The whole sale is off. What do you see? Right? It doesn't work. That's called ma'avir al tvaha. To which Rav Huna, Bered Rav Natan said, this were the last words of yesterday's daf, lo bida'ozi. No. The case was actually as we thought it was. It's not that she sold 101 for 101, in which case it would be exactly parallel to the letech and the core, where there was no monetary loss. It's just that the shaliach didn't do what I asked, right? Sold more than I asked. No. It's when I sold this land for less than it was worth. That's the problem here. Because I did a sale that was an invalid sale because I took 101 and I sold it for 100. Okay? In which case, this has absolutely nothing to do with the question asked. So forget about it being used as a proof. What we're going to do now is have all sorts of questions on this explanation of Rav Huna Bered Rav Natan, that it was bida'ozil, where you lower where she took less than it. In the end, we're going to answer all the questions, which is going to basically, I want to tell you this because you're going to get lost in the back and forth. In the end, we're still going to reject. We're going to read the Mishnah the second way, not the first way. We're not going to read it in that strange way that she sold 101 pot of lamb for 101. No. She sold it for less than its value, and that's why the sale is off. Which would mean that if she sold 101, which she wasn't allowed to, just like the core, he wasn't allowed to sell, right? It wouldn't tell us anything about whether it would be valid if she sold 101 for 101. Likewise, if we sold a letech, right? I asked you to buy sell a letech and you sold a core, we wouldn't have an answer. Okay? So it was an attempt to answer. The attempt is rejected. But like I said, the way we reject it is going to raise all sorts of questions. So now we're on the second chart of the page, where we're basically going to say that Hami de Seifa b'da ozil, have Reisha b'delo ozil. But wait a minute. In case number 3, where I had a 400 zuz ketubah, and then I sold to you, and then I sold to someone else, and I sold to someone else, and I kept selling plots of 100. The last person I sold 101 for 100, that's a case b'da ozil. There, for whatever reason, they're clear there that the 101 per maneh means I sold 101, right? I sold too much, okay, for a bad price, okay, b'da ozil. I got less money than I was deserving of in that last plot. And then what did we say, right? All the other sales were good, but the last one is no good. So that case is b'da ozil, which means that case number 2 has to be different, because this is what I told you before. Each case has to add something new. If we already learned b'da ozil, that shaveh maneh v'dinar b'maneh is canceled in case number 2, we would have known that it's also going to be canceled in case number 3, which means that if you assume, like Rav Huna Bered Rav Natan, case number 2 is in the case where shaveh maneh v'dinar b'maneh means literally she sold a plot of 101 for 100, and that's why her sale is no good, because she got less than what the price was worth. That's bidelo ozil, right? It must be not that she got less than what it's worth. She got less than what it's worth. That's case number 3. So it must be what we thought originally, she sold a plot of 101, 401, and then it's exactly like the case of the letech in the court. That's why this is an attempt to reject the rejection of the answer, okay? To basically go back and reinstate the answer. To which the Gemara says, right? So now here, let's read it inside. The Katane Seifa, as it says in the Seifa. Okay, I kind of explained it, but I'll read it inside. We're on line number 2 in the Gemara. Haytak tu batar b'meot zuz, u'machra lezeh b'maneh, u'lezeh b'maneh, l'charon yafem maneh v'dinar b'maneh, right? Which means she sold 101 for 100. Shalacharon michra batel, the last one is no good, but shalkula michran kayam, the other ones are good, which means that's case bida ozi. Okay, those all did the maneh for maneh, and the last one was maneh dinar b'maneh. To which they say, lo, I don't understand the issue. You could still say, Reisha b'sefer bida ozil. You can go back and reinstate Rav Huna Breder Rav Natan's rejection, which was, even case number 2 is maneh dinar b'maneh, meaning she sold a plot of 101 for 100. And that's why the sale is no good. And then it has nothing to do with the letech in the court case. This seifa hakamashwa. Now, what's left? Well, then you have to explain what's the third case coming to teach you that we didn't already learn from case number 2. So they're going to answer seifa hakamashmalan tama de ozil b'diyatmi aval b'dida michra kaya. It's a little bit complicated, but not too bad. If we take this 400 zuz, okay? Now, if you sell, let's just go to the simple case. Maneh, you sell a maneh v'dinar for a maneh, okay? You basically reduce the price, right? You get a lower price. So we already, if you get a lower price and you go over what you were deserving of, okay? Like in the fourth person here, the fourth person, right, what'd she do? She went into the land. She's deserving of 400 zuz. She took the first plot, 100, second plot, 100. All that was land she was deserving of. That's bedida. She took another 100, and then she took 101 at the end. The 101 at the end dipped into land that was the orphans that she had no access to. That was not hers. Again, what's her connection to this land? She doesn't own this land. She only owes 400 of it. So if she sells within the 400 for a decreased price, the sale is actually going to be valid. In this case, what they're telling you is if the maneh dinar that she sells for the maneh was at the end, so the last person, then it's b'diyatme. She's using the Yatomim's money and their land. She's going into their part. Again, all of it's theirs. But again, the first 400 is hers, really, because it has her name written on it, right? She's supposed to get her ketubot. So we're distinguishing between that and that. So I'm now going to give you the example so it'll be clear. If she sold to the first person 101 plot for 100, okay, that will be a valid sale. So what does it mean it's a valid sale? How much did she get of her ketubah? Even though she sold it for 100, since she took a plot of 101, how much is she going to get of her ketubah now from moving forward? She's only going to get 299 more because she already collected 101. So if she sold to person number 1 a maneh dinar for a maneh for 100, it's as if she collected 101 and the sale is a good sale. That will work. And if she sells to, let's say, number 2 for 101 plot for 100, right? And then on. So we're just going to deduct it from what she's supposed to collect in the end. But if the last person, and that's what this case is telling you, only if the last person was the Yafem Maneh dinar is the transaction going to be canceled, because there she went over. She went into their land. Once she goes into their land, there's no hope anymore. The sale's invalid. The wholesale, right? Even though it includes part, the wholesale is invalid. So that's what case number 3 is teaching you. So basically, we could say that case number 2, where she sells maneh dinar b'maneh, it's canceled. Why is it canceled? Because she went into the Yatomim's property to sell it. And case number 3 is telling us it depends, right? Which part? If it's within your own, what you're deserving of, you reduce the price, right? You got a bad rate. That's your loss, right? But the sale is a good sale, as opposed to number 4 person where it's not. In which case, we now have the case number 3 is teaching us something new that we wouldn't have known otherwise. However, what's the problem with this? You might have already thought of this. We already learned that concept in the first case of the Mishnah. Hamidaresha Shmat Mina. We already learned that from the first case of the Mishnah. What was the first case? Haytak tu batamatayim, She had a 200 zuz ketubah. Umachra shaveh maneh b'matayim, o shaveh matayim b'maneh. What if she sold a 200 plot, which was, what's that called? It's bidida. It's hers to sell, and she sold it for a maneh. She sold it for 100 and took a huge loss. What did we say? Nitkabla ketubata. So we already learned that case. So you don't need case number 3 to teach you that if within what she's deserving of, she gets a lower rate, the sale is good. If she goes beyond that into their stuff and sells it for a lower rate, the sale is invalid, which is what we tried to say. The third case taught us, but the first case already taught that. To which they distinguish now between case number 1 and case number 3, which again is going to bring us back to, we could explain case number 3 and case number 2 is bida ozil, which means case number 2, the one we were looking at from the beginning, has nothing to do with the case of the letech and the core. And still case number 3 is teaching us something that we wouldn't have known from case 2, and now we're going to have to prove we wouldn't have known it from case number 1. And that's going to be the end of this section, okay? So, ma'u detema, hatamu de'ista kalama hai beta lagamri. What's the difference between case 1 and case 2? Case 1, she's already received her entire ketubah amount by selling that one plot of land. So she sold the plot of 200 for 100. She took a huge loss, but she got her ketubah and they're done. She's now removed from having any connection with the orphans on a financial basis, right? She got her ketubah, she's done, cuts off the relationship. Then case number 1 is teaching you that will be an effective sale. However, you might have thought, and this is why we need case 3 to tell you that, again, if she sold to person 1, 2, or 3, a maneh v'dinar for a maneh, she sold 101 plot for 100, it will be a valid sale. Only when she gets to the last one, if she goes and dips into their land, which she's not allowed to access, only then will the sale be invalid. Why do we need a special case to tell us this? Because what's the difference? In this case, when she sells to person 1, 2, or 3, she's still connected to them because she still needs to collect more. So you might have thought, what? Since in the case with 400 zuz, where she sells to 4 different people, maneh v'dinar, and if she sells the maneh v'dinar at the end, that transaction will be canceled, the other 3 will be valid. If she sells maneh v'dinar to person 1, or person 2, or person 3 for a maneh, she sells 101 plot for a maneh, the sale is valid. Now you might have thought, maybe we should invalidate that sale, because if we allow that sale and say it's valid, again, obviously she's going to have to reduce what she's collecting in the end. But if we give validity to that sale, you might think that when she sells to number 4, extra land, you might think, oh, well, we shouldn't allow it here, because then we might think that if she does it in the last case, it'll also be valid. Kam mashmalan, therefore the Mishnah teaches you no. The sale to anyone previously, case number, person number 1, 2, or 3, is fine. Even if she sells for less, we just deduct it from her total in the end. And we don't have to worry that you're going to think that the last person's sale will also be valid if you did that. No concern for that. Again, this all established what the unique, right, what each case 1, 2, and 3 is teaching you, and why in the end, case number 2, which we tried to read in a different manner, to prove the letech in the court case doesn't prove anything. Okay, that's the end of this section. But it's not really the end of the section, because now, instead of the question that we just had, we're now going to say, some people say the question was actually different. Okay, so some people have a different version of the question entirely, but the question was asked in the reversed manner. How so? Ika da'amri. Some people say, haloti baila. The question wasn't, if I asked you to buy me a letech, sell my letech of land, and you sold double the amount. Okay, if you did that, I said, go sell a letech, you sold a core. Of course, the first letech is a good sale. Nobody thinks it's a bad sale. Okay, but the question was this. What if it's the reverse? I told you, go sell a core of land. Okay, I want you to sell this big plot of my land, and you only sold half. Now, obviously, I can get you later to sell the other half, or I can find someone else to sell the other half, but that might be a problem. Why? Miha Marina, and this is really going to be the topic for the rest of today. Do we say, Amarle, Ditavalach Avdelach? You could say, I was doing you a favor. Why? This is the sugya we saw the other day. What if I sell something and then it turns out I don't need the money? Then we have to start saying, oh, can I renege on the deal? And then people call me a reneger, that I renege on deals. It gives me a bad reputation. So you say, look, I was doing you a favor. I only sold half. Because if in the end you don't need the money, then you don't have to go and start reneging on your deal. So I actually helped you by only selling half, because in the event that you may not need all the money, at least right now, it doesn't really say what happens if you do need the money. But the point is, right, you could claim I was actually trying to save you, because remember, why did people sell? They really sold because they needed money. Oh, Dilma, Amarle, or could we say the opposite? I could say, what do you mean? I wanted you to sell the whole piece in one go. It doesn't look good for me that today I sold a plot of land and tomorrow I sold a plot of land. People are going to start saying, it's like saying you have a bad credit rating, right? People are going to say, oh, Michelle clearly needs money. Look, she needs cash. Yesterday she sold a plot for cash. Today she sold a plot for cash. If I sell just one piece of land, nobody pays attention to how much the land was, how much did I sell, how much money did I need. But if they see that every day I'm selling plots of land, right? Obviously it's not every day, it's twice, but twice is more than once, it's double. It's not going to look good for me. People are going to say, oh, she's stressed, she doesn't have money. Okay, which doesn't make me look good. Even though we'll see some sigas where people would prefer they look like they don't have money, so people don't come bothering them for loans. Okay, but in any case, people could claim it doesn't look good for me. Not only that, by the way, other reasons for not wanting to have two shtarot, because it gives me, right, if I sell one plot of land to one person and then that person complains, oh, there's a problem with the shtar, really, whatever, blah, 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 and I want my money back. So if I have two people out there with shtarot, I double my chances of somebody bothering me saying, the shtar is no good, I want my money back, right? It's just more complicated to have more than one shtar. So what's the answer? So again, we now have I asked you to sell a big something and you ended up selling something small. So the first attempt to answer this question is from a Mishna in Me'ila. And we already learned about Me'ila, that the rules are, if the shaliach does exactly what I asked, then I'm moel. Remember what moel means. Excuse me. Moel means that we had money that was sanctified. Nobody realized, they forgot. We used that money to buy something, but I asked you to buy something for me. If you buy what I asked you, then I get Me'ila. It's all on me, the sin. If you do your own thing and you don't do exactly what I asked you, then you're moel. So now we have a case. Ami Rabbi Chanina Misura, Tashma. Let's learn our answer from here. Natan lo dinar shel zahav, va'amar lo haveli chaluk. I gave you a dinar of zahav, which is worth 6 sla'im. You'll see, because in a minute they're going to talk about sla'im. It's 6 sla'im. Those are coins. So I gave you 6 coins and said, bring me a robe for this price. V'halach vehevilo b'shalosh chaluk u'b'shalosh talit. Instead of buying me a talit for 6, you bought me, a chaluk for 6. You bought me a robe for 3 and a talit for 3. Shnehem ma'alu. Both of them are obligated in Me'ila. One for the 3 of the chaluk and one for the 3 of the talit. So, now this is different because it's not selling land and it's not exactly the same comparison, but we're going to go with the comparison in any case, even though there's questions that can be raised about this comparison. But basically what happened here, it's like the letech and the core. Because why? I asked you to buy me something big, and instead you bought me something smaller. And then with the other money, you bought me something else. Okay, so it's similar to you selling half, right? You did half of what I wanted, basically. And what do we see here? It's clear that we view it as if you did what I asked, and then you did more. You bought a chaluk for me, and you bought a talit. Now, mishum hachi balabayim al, that would explain why I get me'ila here. Okay, so even though you only bought me a chaluk that was worth half the value, okay, now it's as if you did what I asked you. But iyamar ma'avir, and which means it's like mosi. If you do it right, you just one second. Right. So it's like I told you to sell a core and you sold half. I asked you to buy a chaluk, you bought it for half the, right? You bought one for half the price. Okay. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar enough. So they say it's clear that we view this as you did half, you just did more than half at this point, right? You did something else with the other three. And that's why I'm mo'el on my three and you're mo'el on your three. But if you say, what are you talking about? You didn't do what I asked you. I wanted a cloak that was worth 6 and you bought me a cloak worth 3. So why would I get me'ila? So it must be we view this as mosif. To which again, the Gemara is going to reject and say, no, you misunderstood the case. At the top here, what's the case? You did exactly what I wanted. Why did you do exactly what I wanted? Because when you went to the store, everything was on half price. So you ended up getting me exactly what I wanted. Right? Obviously, if you buy me a chaluk for 6, or you buy me a chaluk for 3, it's going to be a different type of robe. So now, right, we assumed originally that you bought me a different type of robe, which was like selling half my land. Okay, again, it's very different. So we're going to just put that aside. But basically, they're going to say, wait a minute. But what happened here was I got exactly what I wanted because you found a robe that was worth 6, but you bought it for 3. It was on half price sale. So then you said, I have another 3. I'll go buy something else with it. And you bought a talit with it. To which the Gemara says, well, if you did exactly what I wanted and you took my 6 slain and you bought me a robe that was worth 6, okay? So then why do you get me'ila? You use my 6. Well, now here it's obvious why. So the Gemara answers a talit. Well, it's because of the talit. In other words, I gave you 6. You bought a chaluk worth 6. So I got exactly what I wanted, which is why I'm mo'el. Except you only used 3 for them. The other 3 you used to buy a talit. And for that talit, you get me'ila because I didn't tell you to buy the talit. So the fact that you spent 3 on a talit, that's your problem. Okay, but now you're going to say, wait a minute. This doesn't make sense. Now, this is all assuming that I got exactly what I wanted. If I got exactly what I wanted, then this doesn't answer our question. Because our question was a case where I said, go sell me a core, and you only sold half. I didn't get what I wanted, okay? And then the question is, can I renege on the whole thing, right? Is the whole sale off? Or do we view it as 2 parts of a sale and you did part, you just didn't do the whole thing, and therefore, right, I can't go back on the deal. But our case of the robe has nothing to do with it, because our case of the robe, as soon as we say, I got exactly what I wanted, then it's not the same thing. It's not comparable. So now they say, wait a minute. If I got exactly what I wanted, ihachi ema seifa. Look at the end of that Mishna. At the end of that Mishna, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees, and we're now going to say, you can't say you got a 6 valued robe for 3 slain. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda Omer, af bezeh balabayit lo ma'al. Even in the case of the chaluk, the balabayit doesn't. He thinks there's no meal, right? Tanakama said the balabayit's ma'al on the 3 of the robe. What does he say? Mipnei shechol omar chaluk gadol hayiti mevakesh v'atay v'etali chaluk katan v'ra. I could say I wanted a big robe. I wanted a 6 valued robe, and you bought me one for 3, right? Chaluk, how in the words, small and bad, which means it was a 3, not a 6. So how could you say it was all half price and you bought me exactly what I wanted? Because Rabbi Yehuda says there's no claim of me'ila for the balabaya, because the balabaya could say you didn't get me what I wanted. To which the Gemara explains, this is very interesting. This all goes into laws of not Jewish laws, just laws in general of the market. Mayra rabidami. This is a poor value. In other words, when you bought me, what did you do? I gave you 6. What did you do? You said half price sale. Great. I'm going to buy you exactly what you wanted. The robe that was worth 6, but I'm going to buy it for 3. I'm going to take the other 3. I'm going to buy you something else. That's not a smart business deal. And that's what I could complain about according to Rabbi Yehuda. Tanakama says it's fine because in the end I got 6, right? I got my 6 worth of robe and you bought me something else with the other 3. So great. But obviously the 3 you bought me the other thing, that's your problem of me'ila. My 6 of my robe I got, and that's fine. But comes the Gemara and says, wait, my ra doesn't mean that you bought me a poor valued item. Rabidami, poor value. To Amrle, I could say to you, and this is why I don't get Meila at all when you did this, because I say to you, the bigger the item, the better price I'm going to get on it. In other words, if I buy two different things or I buy one bigger thing, I'll be able to get a better price for the 6. Let's say if everything was half price, you should have taken my 6 slaim. Now there's 2 ways to read it. Either bought me two for a better price. Okay, right? You get often when you buy 2, you get a better price, or buy me a bigger, finer, nicer robe that I could then sell for even more money. I can make a better profit on something worth more money. So you actually, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you caused me a financial loss by doing this. By splitting it into 3 and 3, you should have just taken all 6 and invested in something better. So here we're assuming the markup is double. If you bought it for 6, all the more so, I for sure would have been able to sell it for 12, if not for more, because that's worth more than 3 for 6, right? If I buy 3, I sell 3 for 6 and the other 3 for 6. If I'm lucky, I'll get 6 for each one. But if you had bought me a bigger one or 2 robes, then it would have been a better deal. There's a whole debate about why and how this works. It's a good question, exactly, but that's basically a simple way of understanding. And we're going to further prove this. Again, this is all to prove, just so you don't get confused, because I know it's a confusing daf. This is all to prove that the case, we tried to bring this case from Meila of the robe as an example where you bought me, right, something less than what I wanted. In the end, saying, no, you didn't buy me less. You bought me exactly the value. Okay, right? You bought me a 6 for 3. Okay, meaning I got what I want. Okay, even though Rabbi Yehuda views it as you didn't exactly get what you wanted, but right, Tanakama thinks it is. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not, because you actually decreased my ability for resale, at a high price. And here's a further support. They were obviously talking about something that fluctuates with price, the bigger I buy, because Mode Rabbi Yehuda bekitni, sheshnehem ma'alu, sha'kitni besela, moving out amubet, v'kitni bepruta. Shmamina. Rabbi Yehuda distinguishes between the robe case and between wheat or grains, legumes that I buy in the store. If I buy legumes, it doesn't matter if I buy it for a sela or I buy it for a pruta. Meaning, right, you go into a fruit store, you go to buy fruits, okay? You're going to buy, it doesn't matter if you buy 2 kilos, 1 kilo, or 2 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, you're going to get the same price per item. It's going to be per weight, okay? So kidney is sold for a sela, kidney is sold for a pruta, it doesn't make a difference. So when it comes to kidney, then shnehem ma'alu, because I got what I wanted, because I got the value, right? Let's say the price of the kidney was half price, right? And it was like the chaluk, where I got a value of 6 for 3, then I got what I wanted, because it doesn't matter that you bought me 3 stream beans, right? 3 slayim worth of stream beans and 3 slayim worth of lentils. Because in the end, I can sell the lentils and I can sell the stream beans, and it's not going to make a difference that you got me 2 different things. So therefore, what I wanted, the stream beans, I got, and I'm moel for. What you got, you decided to buy on your own, that's your problem, okay? I can't claim, okay, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that the fact that you bought me something else instead of buying more stream beans is affecting my ability to, the price of the resale of this whole thing. And you should have spent all of it on stream beans, because stream beans doesn't make a difference. If it's a robe, yes, it would make a difference. Okay, to which the Gemara asks about the kidney, hechidami, what exactly is the case? Now, we're going to learn, well, fruit is sold in different ways, or produce, legumes. If we sell by estimate, if you had bought all stream beans, you would have actually gotten a better price. So Amar Papa, it's a place like we have in our fruit stores where we measure everything and it goes by weight, or it goes by, this is like, it goes into a kli, a utensil that they measure it in, some sort of measuring implement. And then if it's measured, then it's all the same and it makes no difference. Okay, so this was all to prove that the case of the robe was a case where I got what I wanted, that you bought me the 6 value for 3. Now it's true, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with that and says, I didn't exactly get what I wanted, but Tanakama thinks I got what I wanted. And therefore you can't learn from here to the letech and the core, because it's not the same thing. Second attempt to answer the question, and now we're going to prove it from our Mishnah. Tashma. Ketubot arba me'ot zuz. Machra lezeh b'maneh, ulezeh b'maneh, ulacharon yafeh maneh v'dinar b'maneh. Shel acharon batel v'shel kulam mechan kayam. So now what do you see here? Now we're going to look at this case from a bit of a different perspective. What was the letech in the core? The letech in the core was, I wanted you to sell this big plot of land, and you only sold part. And now we're going to end up with a star for one person and a star for another person. And the whole question is that bad? And can I claim I want this whole sale off? Well, what happened with this woman? She was supposed to sell this 400 zuz plot. And what did she do? She sold to one person for 100. Then she sold another plot for 100. And nobody claims there was anything wrong with what she did. So obviously, we don't care if there's a lot of shtarot out there. And that would answer our question. But no, it's just mosif. And basically, what's done is done. And now you could try to sell the other half. To which the Gemara rejects and says, no. Like he says elsewhere, which we're going to see at the end of today's stuff. Bikatine, hachanami bikatine. Just like he answers somewhere else, it was where the kids had small plots of land. The father owned a small plot here, a small plot there, a small plot there. There, it's not going to make a difference because in any case, they're separate plots. My chances of selling all those separate plots that are in different places to the same person are slim to none. And that's why she sold them each in 100 zuz increments, because each one was a separate plot of land. That doesn't teach you if it was one big plot, if you would be able to say that was valid, even though you split it up into a number of people. So we don't end up with an answer to that question either. We're left with a lot of unanswered questions today. Now the Gemara says, Pshita. This case is obvious, but we're going to ask about another case. If I told my messenger, go sell my land to one person and not to two. It's very clear what I mean. And if you sell it to one and not to two, if you sell it to two, the whole sale is invalid because I was very clear. What if I just said to one person without specifying not to two? That's Rashi. Some of the commentaries, and I think the sugya makes a lot more sense according to them. What if you just said stama? You didn't say how many people you wanted to sell it to. Now, the standard is, if I tell you to sell my land, I mean to one person, but it didn't specify one person. Okay. So what does it mean? What's the halacha? Do we assume the basic is that I meant only one person, and therefore if you sold it to two, it's invalid or not? So for this, we have a machlok. Rav Huna amar lechav lo l'shnayim. Rav Chisda Rav Huna damar travay lechav afilu l'shnayim lechav afilu l'mea. So Rav Huna says, standard is one and not two. And Rav and Rav Chisda say, no. One, right again, according to Rashi, even if you said one, as long as you didn't say but not two, and according to the others, if you just didn't specify at all, it could be as many people as you want. 200, right? 100 is always our exaggerated number. Ikla Rav Nachman l'sura. Now we get, I think this is understood to be the background to Rav Chisda and Rav Huna saying what they said, because we're going to see in the story that they learned it from Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman came to Sur. Rav Chisda Rav Huna, they go to greet him, and we end up with a discussion between them. Amrule ki agav naman. So they asked him exactly this question. Amar lahu lechav afilu l'shnayim lechav afilu l'mea. So Rav Nachman is the one who actually was quoted as saying what they later said. Amrule, they said to him, afagav d'ta'ah shaliach. But what if he takes less money because of it, right? What if to sell to a number of people, right? Because the smaller the plots you sell, you might get less money. So even if he gets less money, then right, I sent him to sell my land that was worth $100,000. He ends up selling to two different people, each for $45,000. And now I took a loss of $10,000. So then what? Still we're going to say it was okay? Amar lahu, tita shaliach lo kamina. I didn't say if the shaliach made a mistake. Of course, that wouldn't be good. In other words, if the shaliach sold it for too little money, I was not at too little money. I was only talking about how many people. Amrule, they said to him, but isn't there such a thing? Now, what's ona'ah? Ona'ah means if I sell something for more than 1/6 of its value or less than 1/6 of the value, the sale is off. That's kind of, that's, how do you call it? It's basically, the word, you're overcharging or undercharging, okay? So basically, if you're overcharging or undercharging, when it comes to land, there is no such thing. Okay, when it comes to movable property, there is such a thing. When it comes to land, there is no such thing. So how could you say that if he undersold or oversold, there is no real set price for real estate. It always fluctuates. So he says to him, When we say Einona ala karkot, that's if I sold my own land. If I sold my land for way under the market value or way over the market value, then it's fine. Okay, here we're going to talk about way under. If I undersold my property, I made that decision. But a shaliach, and this comes up a lot of times, right? I say, why did I send you to do it? If not to do something good for me, not to do something bad for me and mess me up. So therefore, if he sells it, undersells it, then it goes back. That's what Rav Nachman said. Now we're going to ask, how do we know? Where's the source for the fact that we're going to distinguish between a messenger and the balabait? And for this, we're going to talk about if you take truma for me. Okay, truma, the rules of truma, it's what goes to the kohen, the truma gedolah. There's no set amount. The rabbi said it at 150 is the average. Ayin tova, if you have a good eye and you want to be nice and generous, 140th. If you want to be less generous, 160th. That's your range. So if I say to my shaliach, there's a Mishna in Trumot. I say to my shaliach, say utrom, okay, go take truma for me. I didn't tell him how much. So tolem kedat balabait, you do what I want. Okay, assuming, let's say I did tell you. You don't know what I think. So tolem bebenoni, go with the average, 150. If you went up or down by 10, the way the commentary says is kind of funny. You would say going down would be 160th. They say going down is dropping the denominator by 10, which is 140th, which means you give more, or you gave less by adding 10 to the denominator, 160th, trumato truma. Anything within the range of 140th to 160th will be valid. The ilu gabe balabayit, Tanya, but when it comes to the balabayit, myself, taram ba'alav yado afilu echad me'asrim. What if I gave truma and it came out, I wasn't paying attention, it came out to 120. I gave a huge amount. Trumato truma. So here you see, if I gave 120th, it's valid. If my messenger gives 120th, it's not valid. That's where you see this difference. Now we go back to trying to answer our question. Because what did we do here? We had a question about echad or stam, right? And you didn't say velo shnaim, or you didn't say anything. So we have Rav Huna said one and not two. And right, so if you sold to two, it would be invalid entirely. Rav Huna says it doesn't matter how many people. So now we're going to try to prove our answer from our Mishnah. Our last attempt to take our Mishnah and try to bring an answer for something, also going to fail. The Gemara says, Tashma, Aitak Tubato. Actually wrote Teirutz here. It should be Dichiyah. It should be rejection. Okay, so now they say, Haitak Tubatar Bameotzis, Machal Lezeb Manel Lezeb Manel. Case number 3. Ulacharan Shavem Manem Bedinar Bimanem. Now, what happened here? She went and sold, right? She was a messenger, right? And she sold to each of these people. 1 second. Right. What'd she do? Again, this is proves, by the way, not Rashi's reading, because nobody here said le'echad. It was just that she was supposed to sell it. The unwritten assumption is she's supposed to sell it all to one person. And what'd she do? She sold to 4 different people. And yet we see the sale is valid. So there you have it. It seems to be valid, even if you sell to a lot of people, which would prove Rabbi and Rav Chisda and Rav Nachman. To which Rav Shisha B'Rei Rav Edi rejects this, bikatine. No, it's talking about small plots of land, in which case it doesn't make a difference how many people you sell it to. If it were one big plot, you wouldn't be able to do this. Okay, that's the end of the attempts to ask all these questions, try to answer them, but really not have success. So we have basically 3 questions today. 2 were different versions of the same question. Was it the letech to the court or the court to the letech? And then we have the second question about echad. Does echad mean echad v'lo l'shnai? If you don't say v'lo l'shnai, or you just said it's stam. Okay, we'll finish up with the Mishnah. Now we're talking again about selling land for a different amount. Okay, so we talked about ein ona ala karkaot. This is going to relate to that. Shuma dayanim shepichatu shtut o sifu shtut. If the judges came along, evaluated land. We had this one Mishnah before about you have to do it in front of a court, and the court has to assess the property. If the court basically made the price much higher than a 6th or less than a 6th, michram batel. There's basically laws of ona'ah, and if the court assesses things at the wrong amount, so it's like regular laws of ona'ah, and the sale is off. Rashba gomer michran kayamim kema koch beitin yafeh. You're going to end up with a huge problem if you start questioning the Beit Din's assessment. What power does the court have if people could go say, we don't agree with your judgment, right? wreak havoc on the legal system if people are constantly questioning the court. So basically, we say the court, of course, has the ability to choose whatever price they think is right. And it makes no difference what the real market rate is. To which Tanakama says, back to Tanakama agrees in a particular case. And with this, we'll finish for today. If they did, okay, what's this? An announcement, if they did a public auction, if they did, right? And either so many people came, the price skyrocketed, or nobody came and the price plummeted, then whether they oversold or undersold, michran kayam. Even Tanakama agrees that if there was a public sale and we let the market come into action, then yes. Tanakama only disagrees if it's a case where there's a clear market value and they undersold or oversold when they didn't do things in a public manner, right? This is sometimes when you say, right, where's the transparency here? Right? And the court just decided and did it, and then we have a problem with the court, to which Rashbag says, which is a famous line, very famous line. It comes up in, we've seen it with Hafka'at Kiddushin, right? Ma koch beitin yafeh. Where's the power of the court if you do this? You're going to basically reduce the power of the court if you're going to start questioning their assessments. Okay, with that, we'll finish for today. Wishing everybody Moedim L'Simcha, and we'll meet up again tomorrow.